finance. Many people right now, we all have businesses, we all have ideas, and we want to push these ideas. So sometimes what happens is that there might be people who want to participate with you to do something, but they don't want to participate in your existing business. For example, let's say there's a gentleman who said he wants, he has I think a clinic. I heard someone saying they have a clinic. Maybe the clinic is in Kampala. He wants to do another clinic, for example, in Mbale. And there might be people who want to partner with him in the Mbale clinic, right? But they don't want to partner with him in the Kampala one. And vice versa. He may want to have partners in Mbale, but he doesn't want them to partner with him in Kampala. So there are many occasions where people need to sort of change their mindset and say, let's do this business as a project. Okay? It's going to be a special purpose business focusing on building this clinic in Mbale, just for argument's sake, right? So how do we go about it? And the good thing with that idea is that now even me, if I want to invest in this clinic in Mbale, when I put the money in that clinic in Mbale, I want to be very, very sure that that money will not end up in the clinic in Kampala. It will be focused on building the business in Mbale, right? So that's one of the things where we develop what they call project development and finance, right? So in a nutshell, the first thing is in project finance, it's very likely that the investors, the lenders, the people behind this project are going to focus on one product or very few products that are related to each other. Taking the clinic in Mbale, we can say the focus will be we're going to put up a clinic. It will be outpatient clinic, will not be admitting people, for example, and this is what the facilities will need. Okay? So that's now the project idea. We have come up with an idea where we want to work together as different parties. All of us are just focusing on this one idea, but we're not going to get involved in other ideas or other businesses yet, anyway. So, in project finance, one of the main features is that you're telling the investors, partners, and probably lenders, banks, to come and help you to finance a specific asset, a specific project, or a service, right? And if you're able to package it very well, you'd be able to demonstrate that this specific idea I have can pay those loans and it can pay the investment. To the extent that if it's very, very well planned, the investors and the banks will say, okay, Anita is doing this project, this clinic in Mbale, for example. It's a good project. There's no need for us to ask her for her land title in Kampala, for example, right? There's no need to ask her for security, her cars, and all these other things in other places that have nothing to do with this specific project, right? So I'd like to ask everybody here, just try and look at it like when we're building an idea, this idea itself must be able to stand alone. It must be able to generate products. It must be able to generate products that generate revenues. And when those revenues are received, they should be able to pay back the costs, the expenses, and also pay back the investment. Okay? So it's what they call non-recourse or limited recourse financing. Basically, if this asset or this idea fails, they should not be coming for your land titles in other places or your other properties, because the idea itself was very good enough and had a very high chance and was very de-risked to succeed. So the debt and the equity that is provided in project finance, right, is paid back using the cash flows from the projects only. That's the idea. This idea, we're going to get its cash to pay back the investments and does not rely on other sources of money. We're not going to be saying now the clinic in Kampala should be funding some of the things of the clinic in Mbale, for example, right? We should say the clinic in Mbale, now the way we have projected it, it will have its own cash flows. It should be able to pay back. So now in that scenario, the sponsor, the entrepreneur who's developing that idea, and the investors and the lenders are taking more risks because they're not asking for other kinds of collateral. And the moment they stop asking for other kinds of collateral, it means that they now really have to make sure that this idea, this new idea, is really, really almost has no risks, or all the risks in this idea have been identified, they will be mitigated and managed. So they are going to really come through this idea so much. So you need to get ready for that. So that's the main purpose mainly of this discussion. How do we get ready for the appraisal of an investor, for the appraisal of the lender? So some key features of project finance, like I mentioned, is non-recourse limited financing, meaning they will not come for your land titles in other places and other things. The project, it's project-specific financing, meaning that most likely you're going to create a company. Let's call it the Mbale Clinic. It's very specific. It will
Roland, did we lose you?
Hello?
Sorry.
Okay. So these are the key features about a project finance is that one, you're trying to convince everybody this idea is very solid. You don't need to go for other land titles. It will succeed. The second thing is that we are going to isolate everything we're doing within one project company. Let's call it the Mbale Clinic Company. And then it's everybody gets paid from the cash generated by the project, which means before we start the project, before we commission the project, no one is getting paid. So you have to go through some pain, okay? And we only get paid when the project is up and running. Some advantages of it is that, of course, it protects your other assets from being taken up if from the loan, if the loan doesn't work properly. Then you have a lot of risk sharing. Okay, you're sharing the risk with other people, other investors, other service providers. Basically, there's a lot of collaboration here, and you're bringing together a team of many people to make sure this project is successful. It provides long-term financial financing. Okay, if the idea is very good and you get an investor or a bank, they will want to give you financing for the length of the project. Okay, they'll have understood it. We'll go into the details later. And then one of the best things about project finance is that it leads to very high returns. You get higher returns than if you're investing the normal types of investing in, treasury bills and bonds and unit trusts. You get higher returns because you're taking more risks. So in just a global picture of project development and project financing platform in practice, this concept of project finance was very, very big initially in mining. Okay, there were the ones who would say, we're going to find a mine in a place like Karamoja, Uganda. It's a gold mine, and we're going to ring fence all the activities under this company called Karamoja Gold Mine Limited. Right? So it was very successful in mining because mining, those are very big projects. So what ended up happening is that people who developed those skills in mining ended up pushing them into energy. That's how we started doing power projects, power generation projects. But these umemes, they have been using project finance to raise money to deliver services in a place like Uganda. So it has now evolved over time, over the last 5 decades, into other sectors like agriculture, it's in health, in real estate, in trade. People are beginning to say, for example, I want to do transportation. You just ring fence the logistics side of it, where you're bringing in some trucks. Those trucks become the security, but then when you ring fence, people say that when this truck delivers a product to, let's say, Mokwano, for example, and Mokwano pays, we, the investors and the banks, have to get paid first before the original sponsors. Okay, so as you can see from this slide, the biggest place where project finance is actually growing fastest right now, the greenfield projects, these new ideas that are being used where they're using project finance, is in developing countries. And actually, in the last 5 years, some of the fastest growing area, geographic location where project finance is taking place is in Africa. So I'd like to just mention that we are We are right now one of the biggest recipients of the methods and benefits of project financing, where you're just focusing on developing an idea as a project separate from the existing businesses. People are willing to put investment and risk with you to develop those ideas. So you can see that the Africa developing countries are leading in greenfield projects. We are leading now in international project finance, and we are very active now in what they call cross-border mergers and acquisitions, where international people with money can come and now just buy an existing business and maybe keep you in as a shareholder, and you partner going forward. So what the question is now, what is fueling this idea of doing things in a project specific company? What is driving that? Okay. One of the biggest things is there's a lot of market integration taking place. Right now, we have the East African community, we have SADC, for example. There might be someone in Sudan who wants a product in Rwanda. Okay. There might be someone in Tanzania who needs a service that Ugandans are able to provide. So that drive, there's demand now for high valuable products from a specific location, right? The other time I was talking recently with someone who was talking about these local music instruments that are available in Uganda have become a premium product in the Western world. People want to play those xylophones, you know? So there's this demand now to pull products from where they are to places where they'll be valued more. That regional integration, bigger markets. So people are saying, let's deliver those valuable products or services through projects. That's one of the things that's pushing it up. I'll show you how the structuring is done later on, but these methods that are being used in project finance, and which initially started in mining and energy, are now being spread across many sectors, right? The biggest growth is in agribusiness, in energy, in manufacturing, in health and education. Those are key areas that they're using this tool now. You know, someone says we need to build a school. Let's just come together, gentlemen. We form this company called, Busoga Primary School, for example, and then we are going to put money in Busoga Primary School and run it as that. Okay, so that structuring is now going across many sectors, and I'd like to encourage people that are on board here. Don't feel shy. If you have an idea and you don't want people to come into your existing business, form a separate company for that idea and get partners to do it. They'll probably even be the ones to drive you and say, listen, I want to do this idea with you, but we're going to do it separate from your existing business. The key partners usually are what they call the project sponsors and the lenders in this project finance. When I say project sponsors, usually there's a guy with an idea. Let's say I have an idea. I have like a small plot in Entebbe, for example. I want to do, for argument's sake, a nursery school, okay? But I don't have the money. So I'm what they call the founding, the sponsor, the original sponsor. To do this idea, maybe we'll need 100 million shillings. So if I go to the bank is going to say, okay, this idea needs 100 million shillings, but we can give you 40. You get 60. And that's where the real problem, the challenge starts. I have land worth maybe 10. I need another 50 million to get to 60 million. And then after that, I can get 40 million from the bank. Okay. So now that second person who can bring me that 50 million, let's call him investor B. Investor B is going to ask so many questions about this idea. Okay. Before even the bank comes. So we need to get ready for that. So the key players in a project finance situation would be the original founder, the potential investors, investor B. By the way, you'll have to talk to get an investor B in that idea. You're probably going to talk to, and I'm sure you've all experienced this, 20 to 30 people who will just be asking you questions, and they will probably not finance the idea. But at some stage, someone will say, yes, I'm ready to finance this idea. That's because you've gone through so much failure, maybe sometimes, or you've learned a lot, that by the time you reach the final investor who said yes, you're able to pitch your idea properly. Okay. Another key feature is that risk sharing. Okay, in project finance, you're not the only one who's sharing this, who's bearing all the risks. You need to get partners and maybe even service providers that will enable you to identify risks, mitigate them, and manage them. Another key factor that's driving project finance is what they call value and impact. Okay, a lot of financiers, even these banks that are in Uganda, right? They're getting their money from international sources, and these international sources, there's a global push now that when you develop an idea, it should have some form of impact. It should not only benefit the project owner or the business owner, it should kind of at least have some impact on the community they are in, the community where this project is in, the industry they are getting involved in, even the country. Like Anita was praying and saying, we are here to do our business, but also help us to also make our contribution to the country. So people would like to see that your idea has some level of impact beyond just the project company. And then one of the final thing is that there's now a lot of local capacity. We have good advisors, good engineers in Uganda. We have good, um, suppliers. Farmers have kind of learned a lot along the way. They're able to increase their yields. So there's now a lot of opportunity to get raw materials, get services, get contractors, and all these people are willing to come together to make a project work, and eventually they'll also get paid. Okay. So these are some key factors that are driving this idea of isolated project company. Let's develop the idea as an isolated project company. So some keys to success, right? For this project company, this idea that you formed the company to do it. What are the things that you need to look out for very quickly, right? You need to basically, as early as possible, make sure that there's effective interaction and collaboration amongst you, your partners, your investors, the banks, all the parties that are there. You basically, in the military, they used to say, I don't know if it's still the same, but the most important plan is the communication plan. Okay? You need to be able to share your idea. Sometimes you have an idea, you're so guarded, you're so protective over it, but it's not going anywhere. There needs to be some level of opening up and sharing and collaboration between yourself, your fellow shareholders, your investors, and other parties. Then you need to do some homework on the country and sector environments. Okay. This should be enabling. For example, I'll just give an example. In Uganda, the electricity, I'll keep using the electricity sector, but just imagine this is the agriculture sector, right? The electricity sector allows people to build, solar projects, build hydropower projects, and sell power to the national grid. Okay, it also allows people to do distribution. I can go and apply to the Electricity Regulatory Authority. I say I want to take power from let's say from Luero to Nakaseke. I want to go and I extend power there and I sell to those people. The law allows it. What the law doesn't allow is for you to do what they call power transmission. Okay, there's only one company, UETCL, by law, set in the Constitution and the Electricity Act, that is allowed to move power at very high voltage from Jinja to Kampala, for example. Okay, so it is pointless for Roland and anyone here to think that I can do a transmission line project. I can move power from Karuma and I can take it to South Sudan. It's not going to happen because the law at the moment doesn't allow that to happen. So it's very important for you to understand the country and the sector that you're operating in. Another example I can give you there is, for example, there's the agriculture sector has been driving from 2015. There's a big drive in the agriculture sector to scale up the production of poultry, chicken products, and bird products because of the benefits of white meat. Okay, so now an entrepreneur can look at that and look at this the opportunity, because right now, from what I've seen, there's an average Ugandan is consuming about less than 2 kilograms of chicken in an entire year. Can you imagine that? So there's a big, and if the population is growing and they need chicken, okay? So now you'd be able to look and say, okay, there's an enabling environment to do this chicken business, okay? How do I get involved? And yeah, so then also another key feature is to identify the risks upfront before you go and start trying to do the business. Like that example I gave you of someone trying to do a transmission line project as a private person it's just someone who has not done their homework on the risks, because no one by law is going to buy that power even if he did it. Now, coming back to the chicken example, you should realize that, for example, it's prone to be attacked by diseases. Okay, what happened the last time there was an outbreak that hammered the poultry industry? So I think in 2017 there was a ban on chicken from Uganda actually for some time, because there was this avian flu that was spreading here in Uganda. So the neighboring countries stopped it. So if you're now coming to do the chicken business, you're coming to talk to an investor, you're coming to talk to a bank, and you didn't know that, you look a bit weak before them. They'll be like, this guy doesn't understand this industry. What happens if we are not able to export? Okay, then to mitigate that, you can say, well, for me, I'm going to grow my own chicken, because this avian flu, it spreads a lot, because we are buying chicken from different farms to do our chicken business. But now if we just grow our own business and follow the health and safety requirements, we'll be able to manage and mitigate that risk. Then the next thing is that we should always try to optimize our businesses. Optimization really is, look at the resource you have. As one person, you can't be everywhere. You can't be the chairman, the treasurer, the CEO, the finance manager, the distributor. At some stage, you're going to burn out, and some things will, there'll be inefficiencies. You'll be spread too thin. So optimizing your capacity is basically try and reduce everything to what you can deliver consistently and effectively all the time. Someone knows, when I call Anita, she will come through on this particular thing. So with project finance, that's why they'll tell you, we want you to narrow everything you're doing to one product. Or if they're going to be multiple products, they should be products that are related to each other. For example, if you're going to do the chicken business, then we're going to get into the business maybe of growing grain and soybeans for our maize meal to do the chicken business. You see, those are so there's now maize, there's soybean for chicken, then there's chicken feed, and then there's the chicken business. Those are 4 products that are all related to each other. Okay, so doing products that are not very related to each other is a bit it can spread you thin and you become ineffective. You'll struggle. Okay, so now let me just run you through. So we were talking about, you're the original idea, you have the idea, you're the entrepreneur. The bank has told you, go and get another investor first, then you can come to us. Okay, so what's that investor going to look at in your business? He's going to ask questions. He's going to come with a checklist. And some of them, these investors are very seasoned. They've been in the business 20, 30 years, so they know. They can just come and take a look and know whether you know what you're doing or you're not doing it right. But also, they are very quick from their eyes and observations to observe the success you have done. Okay, investors and banks, there's an American phrase they like using called skin in the game. They want to see that this person, let's call him Jackson. Jackson is so invested in this idea, even if he doesn't have money, he's so invested in it, he really believes in it, that Jackson will make sure that this thing doesn't fail. He'll do everything in his power to see that this thing doesn't fail. Okay? That passion is one of the things they want to see in that original sponsor, that you're going to do whatever it takes, legally, of course, to make it work. Okay? So now when they feel that in you, they will now ask some other questions. They want to now understand, what have you achieved so far? What are you doing next? What are you doing right now? And when we bring our investment, what are you going to do next? Those are the 3 questions you need to be able to answer quickly. What have you completed? We know that you're struggling, but what have you completed? Even in your struggle, You need to be able to document what you've completed. Okay, what are you doing right now? If we bring this investment, what is it going to do right now? Okay, what are you doing in the future? So that we cannot bring the whole 100 million at once. We're going to give you 20 million. We see how you behave. Then we will give you 30 million, and then we'll give you the other 50, maybe in a year or two. Okay, that those investments are going to come based on activities. These are the activities that we're doing now, the activities we're going to do next, and so forth. Another thing is that investors and lenders tend not to want to get caught up in your past. So this thing of, I have rent arrears from last year. If I can pay the landlord, I can get the business up and running. Very few investors will support you in such a cause. What the investors want is really, you need to sell them. What are we doing today? And what are we going to do tomorrow? Okay, we have our past pains. We'll sort those ones out. But let's just keep them away from the investors for now and focus on, if you give me this, I can increase the number of products, or I can improve the quality of this product. Then I can sell it in another market. I can increase, my capacity. So these are now, I just laid up a few questions here for people to think about. Okay, these are the questions that we have seen in the energy sector with large manufacturers or even small manufacturers, in people developing property projects. These are the kind of questions. I will not be able to go through all of them, but it's just for you to think about. Then maybe I'll show you a project where these questions were clearly collected and answered. Okay. So you should be able to very quickly describe your project. Okay. The first thing they always ask is, who's behind this project? Who are the people? And if you're very cagey, it's not very clear, my mom is in it, but I'm not in it. At that stage, you're beginning to lose the investor. You're beginning to lose the lender. It should just be so clear that you can even send them one page that describes it, So you should be able to describe the ownership structure of the company, the sponsor. You should be able to describe the legal status. You say this, we're a legally registered limited company. It's a sole proprietorship. It could be an NGO. It could be a government PPP. People know this because people need this information very quickly, because the investors will say, I cannot put a project where government is involved. Me, I only invest in private sector. The other people, by the way, will say, me, I do not touch private sector. My funding must go to NGOs and governments. So very quickly, you need to, these investors and lenders need to filter out whether or not you qualify. They need to understand the major products to be produced. Maybe you're going to do 10 things. You're planning to do 10 products. Okay. Out of these 10, which is the number one product? And why is it the number one product? They need to understand your comparative advantages, So for example, that chicken project, why are you putting it in Nakaseke? Okay. I say, we're putting it in Nakaseke because there's a lot of people in Nakaseke district that are growing grain. So it will be very easy to get animal feed in this location. Okay. But then they'll tell you, but Nakaseke, how far is it from the market? Where is the market? Kampala. How far is it from Kampala? It's 60 kilometers. All right. So are we transporting the birds when they are alive, or are we going to slaughter them and then transport them? We're going to slaughter and we're sending the meat. Okay. Do you have a cold chain? You get it? So the questions, as you answer, they bring more questions sometimes. Okay. But you need to understand the project competitive advantages. Then let me just move to the capital investment. Okay. Capital investment, many people think when you hear the word capital, they first go straight to money. Actually, initially, the capital investment is, we'll talk about the money later, but what have you brought? What does this project need? Okay. What are we budgeting for here? So, you're going to tell them about the land, the location of the land, the distance from the market, where this project is located. Do the people around there, are they able to provide us with the labor we need? Okay. So these are things you need to think about. You don't want a situation where you're bringing in a lot of labor from abroad or from another place, because that, your product becomes expensive? Are there going to be some civil works or building activities, for example? If the answer is yes, we're going to build broiler sheds for the chicken, okay? They'll want to see that you got someone who has done it before to help you to design that thing and build it. But you didn't just career on your own and do something. Then they want to know, the major equipment, auxiliary equipment, things like that. This is for manufacturing mostly, if you're making a tangible product. Then the project management, how are you going to manage this whole thing? May just be honest with them that, listen, maybe we need to hire some good guys to come and manage it. May I want to focus on the financing components, or may I'm a scientist, I want to focus on the treatment of patients in the clinic, but I need people who deal with these admin things and all of that. So these guys need to see that you're already thinking about these ideas. I don't have the answers right now, but I'm thinking about the idea and the challenge that's ahead. The pre-operating requirements for the project, contingencies, a lot of the time we say, if you give me 10 million, I will deliver. Then the 10 million comes, you deliver 60%. Now I need another 3 million. I hadn't thought about it because of this other thing that came up. Can you organize? Can you help me give me 3 million? Investors and partners, they get tired of that kind of thing. But if you told them, listen, I think we need 10 million, but for contingency purposes, let's plan 13 million, but you give me the 10 first, okay? Then we'll see. That way, when they give you the 10 and you go back for the 3, they can't really complain. They were kind of already warned about it and prepared for it, okay? Then a lot of the times we do the fantastic idea, we get it up and running, and then working capital hits us, If you're doing a small school now, you have to pay the salaries for teachers for about 1 year. You don't have students yet, enough students, for example, okay? When you're doing the chicken business, you have to set up this whole place. You need to put security. You don't want guys to come and raid your chicken. But now you have not yet entered the market. So there's that initial working capital requirement. You need to budget for it. Even if you don't have it, you need to show people, I thought about it. Just to speed things up a bit, develop some project schedules, construction will take this long, then startup will take this long, operations for this project. People like to see that whatever we're doing is going to operate for at least 10 years, preferably even 12, In the energy sector, we always have to do 20 years, but I'm building an asset for 20 years. So then they'll look and say, this thing, the way you've designed it, this machine you've bought, from the supply, it says 7 years. Now are you talking about 20 years? You get it, huh? So you need to be able to match these timings. Like now, if I get some kind of scanner, let's say going back to the clinic, if I'm getting these these machines that do vitals, okay? And I'm saying that this clinic has a 20-year lifespan. I need to get equipment that will last at least 10 years before major repairs. I'll just skip to production process. This is for people who are making tangible products, okay? What is the technology that you're trying to get? What is the size? How much are you going to be producing per day? What is the process, okay? Do you have the capacity to run it? These guys who are going to give you the equipment, is training part of it, So they want to see there some level of assistance, because at the end of the day, they have all the world's best equipment, but if you don't have people to operate that equipment, you're going to have a problem. So they want to see that, okay, in case this thing breaks down, I can return it. And the guy says, we can get another one, okay? So environmental impact, these days, it's becoming more and more difficult to stay out of environmental and social issues. So instead of dodging them, we might as well become familiar with them. If it's the chicken idea, for example, it's now required by NEMA that you need to do some form of environmental impact assessment. But if it's a very, very small operation, then they'll say, we're going to give you an exemption, okay? But you don't want to be there. You've done your whole idea, you've expanded, you've invested, the investor comes, the lender comes, and they say, hey, but this idea, this size, did you go to NEMA? And you're like, no, these NEMA guys, like, you get it, eh? These people are so afraid of their money getting tarnished oh, World Bank funded in a project, and there were no social safeguards, there were no environmental safeguards. So to prevent that, they will bring their environmental specialist to your location and ask him, give me an opinion, an environmental opinion on this business, on this project. And you don't want that person to write a report that says that these people never even thought of the environmental issues and social issues. Okay? For example, if you're doing a manufacturing project or you're making a product, there's going to be some form of waste. You're going to have some byproducts, but you're also going to have some waste products. Okay? A simple thing would be I partnered with a waste company. They come once in a while, they collect this waste and they take it away. You have managed and mitigated the risk of, waste violations. Marketing and sales. Okay, everything I've spoken about right now is about putting in. Investors are putting in. You're putting in your effort. Lenders are putting in. You're putting in land. Okay, the only thing that is going to get that out in terms of revenue is when you get your products out there. Okay, so you need to be able to define your product clearly because people need to understand what is this product, what are its benefits, why should I get this product from this guy and not that guy. Okay, so speaking about your products is good. Understanding the market that you're in. For example, that chicken business I told you about. Okay, you may need to bring if you're doing frozen chicken or those chicken pieces, for example, you may need to bring it all the way to the supermarket. Okay, or you may say, I'm going to target the big supermarkets because these small guys, by the time we're done haggling, the meat is spoiled. Okay, so you have to be able to see what is your game, how are you going to distribute this product. Maybe there's a market for it in another country. Do you have to go there yourself to sell it? Maybe you can go and look for a partner there who can, I'll deliver it to this point near the border, you pick it up from here. Yeah, so then there's management and personnel. So this is what they call G these days. There's a new phrase that's really pushing called ESG, environment, governance, and ESG, environment, social, and governance. Okay, so they want to look at your management structure. These guys are like, man, if this entrepreneur gets sick, what happens to our investment? What happens to the product? What happens to the supply? And a lot of these supermarkets, by the way, they're worried about that. I want to support this guy, but if he's not okay, what happens? So that's why they say, okay, you bring your chicken, but they keep 3 other guys supplying because they're just managing risks if they feel that you're alone. But if you're big enough and you're strong and you show them, I have a good manager, a good finance person, good person in operations, I have a board of, actually, if I'd like to encourage everybody here as much as possible, try and put in place a board of directors. You can have people on the board, you don't have to pay them, but it really gives a good image that you have some form of governance taking place. The financing structure, this needs to be very clear, okay? Let's say, coming to the chicken idea, we are looking for 100 million, okay? The original guy is bringing land, the idea and all of that, 10 million. We're now looking for an investor who's going to bring 50 million, and then we're going to go to the bank to bring 40. Okay. So the first thing they'll say, this guy of the 10 million, the sponsor, let him first put in the land. Let him give the company a lease that I'm leasing this land for the next 10 years to this project. Okay. They'll say, okay, now let the second investor now invest. Then the guy, the bank will come later. But in this financing now, you need to show that now those structures I was describing are what they call equity and debt. The bank brings debt, the rest of everybody is bringing equity. Now, the beauty about project finance is that right now you can find you're hustling on an idea, right? You're spending your time and effort on it, but you're not recording those expenses. When they come and say, okay, we want to support this idea, you will have no proof or little proof of how much you've actually spent on it. Whereas if you had formed a company for that specific idea, you'd be, when you spend on fuel, phone calls, some little salaries, you're buying raw materials, you're buying equipment, you're doing all those things and you're telling them, put these receipts in this company. You're getting ready for the financial due diligence, okay? So things are not in your mind or in receipts in your pocket. They are now actually being done in the name of that company for that specific idea. Then you have to have copies of these legal documents. If you have any agreements, articles of association, government approvals, we just spoke about the chicken idea. You may need to go to NEMA. NEMA says, this project is too small, we're giving you an exemption. They'll give you a letter. The land where you're doing the project, does it have a title? Does it have encumbrances? Show us a map. The shareholders agreement, you said you have investor A and B. How are they operating? What's governing that relationship? And the financing loan agreements, basically. Okay. So please let me know if you're still there. So some key takeaways that we can look at now is the first thing is try as much as possible to create and organize your project to satisfy the appraisal of investors and lenders. Even if you have all the money to do your project today, at some stage later in life, you may need investors and lenders. So you might as well do the homework today. What would it take for Stanbic Bank or Absa Bank to lend money to this idea? You can actually go to the bank, say, give me the list of your requirements, okay? And start putting those requirements in place today, right? The next key thing is select as much as possible competent service providers and partners, okay? At some stage, someone is going to say, okay, these are your statements. You say this is how much you've spent, but do you have audited accounts? Okay. And we have friends, we went to school, we have friends and relatives who have done these things now. So we can tap into this, their knowledge without spend so much money, but they can help us to get ready today. So try and get some, for example, if you're doing the idea of the chickens, right? Who is going to help us to move this chicken once we have slaughtered it in Nakaseke to Kampala? Are we going to be the ones to invest in cold chain, or are there people in this city now moving around in cold chain trucks that we can talk to? And then, we can enter a letter of intent or an MOU that when I've finished my project, you'll be one of my transporters. By just doing that, you've given your idea a very good standing. You've made it more solid for the investors and lenders to look at it. Yeah. Then, oops, sorry, this is a typing. So here it's the enterprise usually forms a special purpose company to do one or very few outcomes. Okay. They try and keep the idea, the project idea, don't cross 5 different products at the beginning. Products will evolve over time, but they want to see that you're laser focused on one main idea. This is the idea that's going to pay our loans, pay our investment. The next product will be a bonus. So this needs to be very clear. You need to understand your business now and say, when I analyze everything I'm doing now, which particular product is actually sustaining the business the most? And that's where they would like to see your effort. So there's financing in project finance targets and is isolated to the project development only. Okay. The next thing is that the key takeaway is that revenue is only earned when the asset is up and running. Once the business is up and running, that's when people start earning revenue, and then that's when you start paying back. This other form of corporate finance, business financing, even when you're in the middle of construction, they can start pushing you and say, hey, you man, start paying the loan. And it can be very, very painful. And you've seen so many projects that have kind of been abandoned because they had to start paying loans before the project assets were up and running. But the beauty with project finance, if you're able to answer all those questions and they say, okay, we'll finance you and we'll start getting paid when the revenue comes through. Project finance is performance-based. They'll not be looking at how your other companies are doing. They'll not look at how Roland did in the past. This guy has a fantastic CV, delivered that project. No. In project finance, you need to be able to demonstrate the performance of this new product, the performance of this new project. Okay? That's what people will focus on. So you need to really study the opportunity of that new output and focus on it. And then with project finance, the interactions and the relationships are basically formed around this new idea and this new output that we are going to deliver. So let me just speak very briefly. I thought I tried to do a different case study that would be simpler, but in the interest of time, I just want to show you a complete project. Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Roland, we can hear you.
Okay. Sorry, I'll just.
Yes.
I'm trying to share something else. Just let me know if you can see that.
Yes, we can.
The one data platform, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so I just I thought, people can feel like, okay, it shows something that was actually done along these lines, right? So a good case study is, so we built a project, this one data platform for this purpose, to enable entrepreneurs, businesses, and people basically to create and organize their project in a way that investors want to see them, okay? So let me just log into the one data platform. So currently you can see we have about 180 projects, but I'll go to a project here. So I tried to do a different case study, but I felt, let me show you an actual complete project, right? So when I'm an investor, what am I looking for, or a bank? Very quickly, I want to understand whether I can do the project. Project name, the industry it's involved in, and the country, okay? If I'm allowed to do business in that industry and country, I'll then want to go further. I need to understand a brief description of the project. For example, here they say it's a 7-megawatt hydropower project. It could just be, we are a chicken company doing broilers and we're selling meat. We're not getting involved in eggs, okay? The main product is here is grid electricity. In the chicken example, it's meat, chicken meat. The products, you see, everything is very, very sharp and specific. We're not saying large paragraphs of many things, because these guys want to know very quickly, can I do this deal with you? Can I invest in your idea? Okay, so the products here, you can see it's grid electricity. So in the other case, it can be animal feed. We're going to do chicken and meat, frozen chicken, for example. The size of the project, because here now in the chicken example, this would be tons. You say, me, I'm going to be producing, I don't know, 500 tons every year of chicken. The currency that's involved is USD. It could be UGX. Then your whole list of completed activities. So in this case, they're saying we have done the feasibility studies, we have done the environmental studies, all these investigations, we have a business plan, a financial model, we have audited accounts, okay? What are you doing next? We are now doing some project management. We are trying to raise the money. We are looking for advisors to help us and contractors to build this thing. I am looking for a supplier in China to sell me the equipment. Okay, and what are the next things? Well, we need some money. If you can come on board, we would like to build this thing. So we need to construct, we need to commission, and then we need to start operations. Okay. So someone's okay, these guys look like they know what they're doing. So the next thing is they'll want to go into what they call the detailed appraisal. Now they're going to come and do real homework on what you're talking about, okay? So you can see here we have a full menu of basically what we have done in this particular project. So we have the overview. It's always good to have an overview of your project, okay? Project overviews basically is what in some businesses they call it an information memorandum. at any one point, it's really good to have an information memorandum, but basically it's a very high level summary of what your project is, what's happening in your project. Some key things that should be in there, for example, describe your project, describe the investors, describe the sponsors, the country. I mean, we're in Uganda, but just put it there. You never know. Because these guys, when they come to do an investment appraisal on you, they are ticking things. So if you have their checklist already, it would be good to answer those questions. Describe your products and services. Tell us the consents that you have. Do you have a trading license? Do you have a VAT clearance? Have you been cleared by the regulator? If it's a chicken business, you may need some clearances from the poultry department at Ministry of Agriculture. Do you need licenses? Say, no, this project doesn't need licenses, for example. Any agreement you have in place? Yeah, we have an agreement with the cold chain guys. But when we start up and running, they will be able to come and pick the chicken and deliver it to these locations, these supermarkets. We have spoken to these supermarkets. We just have a letter saying that they are ready to buy from us when we are ready, Try and get some documents to support this idea of yours, by the way, okay? The project team, let me just pick on project team. We talked about governance, for example, okay? There are some things people want to know. Do you have a board of directors, for example? What's the governance structure? Say, we have a board of directors and we also have a management team. But if you're a very, very small entrepreneur, you can say, I have an advisory board of 3 people, okay? You just have to always show that somehow there's some checks and balances and you're getting ideas and advice from different people who know what they're doing, okay? So try and reach out to your relatives and friends, former schoolmates, try and get them to come on board and look like they're advising, or in fact, try and get real advice from them, actually. Not even pretend to, but try and get some real advice from them. So then you'd have, who are these directors? It's good to have these people's profiles there. So, for example, okay, you say this guy is your director. Let me see his CV. Their CVs are here. Someone can click, read about this person, see their qualifications, if possible, get their cover letter, get their CV. But if not, you can even put the LinkedIn link now. People are now on LinkedIn. So I can say, hey, Anita is here. She's advising us. This is her LinkedIn profile, okay? Things like that. So another key section, sorry. Schedules, I touched on that. Let me see, investments, okay? Let's say you're saying this project is $100 million, 100 million shillings. What are the big items? Okay, you say 60% of that will be to build these broiler houses, 20% to get equipment in, 10% is management. That, they want to see that, first of all, you understand the big items. And by the way, at one point, investors and bankers, the seasoned ones in project finance, they're doing the mental calculations. They're saying this thing is 100 million. The way this guy has estimated, the broilers and the houses and all of that should be 50 million. So when you answer and say it's 50 million, in his head is ticking, okay? But because you got ready, you're able to do that. You want to know who your partners are. Okay, I'm going to get these day-old chicks from this company, Ken Chick, or whichever supplier is here. I am going to get this construction company. They have done chicken houses all over Uganda before. They'll come and support me. I'm going to get the guys who are going to do the drainage for, the water supply system, blah, blah. These guys have done work for national water. Sometimes you can even talk to these people and they can come and start guiding you already. So, but these entrepreneurs want to see and investors want to see that you're seeking, that you have the right thinking around you, not just internally in your project, but the ones that are supporting the project idea, okay? Different kinds of partners. Then they will want to see your legal and compliance, okay? You complying, which laws affect this project, okay? For example, if the chicken business, it's affected by the agriculture policy. There is a NEMA policy in place. There's the Environmental Act in place. There is, there are things like tax, So just look at your business and just find out, by the way, laws are very interesting. Sometimes we think they're very sophisticated. It's beyond me. When you go and just try and download the law that is governing the idea or the business you're involved in, okay, you will not believe, you will know more than half of that stuff, and you will be able to see the loopholes in the law. Wow, they could have written this better. Oh, okay, the law doesn't cover this, so maybe you'd understand how to navigate within the law. Laws usually have regulations that come with them, okay, and then these regulations usually have guidelines. So, and we are lucky. Sometimes these regulations even give you a template. Like for NEMA, they'll say, you're doing a chicken business that needs the environmental permit, you need to complete this field, this table, and this information in this table format like this. So I'd like to encourage members here, if you haven't already, check out the laws in your businesses, check out the regulations. Those regulations have forms attached to them, okay, that will guide you on the things you need to look out for to make sure your business is legitimate, it's compliant, and investor ready. Then risk management, okay? I gave you an example of the chicken example. They're at risk of what is it? Avian flu. If it comes in, it can take down the whole, all your broilers. So you need to have said, okay, there's this risk here, but me now what I'll do is I'll focus on growing my own chicken internally, and I'll control it like this. There's a risk of aflatoxins if you're doing the maize food, the feed meal. A lot of grain, there's poor post-harvest management, for example. The grain comes out, it's on the ground, it starts getting a bit spoiled, the moisture content is too high. It can, if you give your chicken that food, it can create issues and diseases in them, okay? But more importantly, you said, even part of my business, I wanted to sell some maize meal or animal feed around. So you need to be aware of what really are the risks of this thing. There's a risk of market risk. For example, oversupply, okay? And we're beginning to feel that, especially I was talking to people of coffee, people of vanilla. They're going through a season where, 2 years ago, there was an issue in Brazil. Coffee was a bit low. They told everybody to plant coffee. They have planted a lot of coffee. Now Brazil has bounced back. Vietnam is bouncing back. Coffee prices are going down. You get it? So you need to understand what is the market and demand risk of my product, Competitors, is it very easy for someone next door to me to come up and develop the same product? And this is something you can see in a place like Nkrumah Road, where everybody is stationary. Okay? So when in such a scenario, you can't overcharge. You can't say, my stationery is better than the other guy's stationery, than the other guy's stationery. Try and, as much as possible, position your product and yourself in a place where you are not in oversupply. Otherwise, they'll drive down the prices and you will struggle. The investment requirements. How is this investment going to be done? Okay. I can't really go into this part, but yeah, so let me just, some things you need to look out for when you're doing your financial analysis. Is what is the investment required? What are they going to be, what they call the costs? The cost of sale, for example, if you're doing the chicken project, the costs are going to be in construction, in buying these chicks, in securing the place. So those are what they call, core costs. Then you have expenses, Now we need to, for example, travel, do some marketing, get, their expenses. Then the next key thing that you need to look out for are things like the net present value of your project, the return. After I've cleared all these costs, how much money was left and how much can be distributed to me and my fellow investors, okay? The payback period. Payback period is basically we put in 100 million every year. The net amount we make is 1 million. That's going to take 100 years. Okay, are you ready for that? Or for this thing to work, we must be able to get at least net income of 15 million. so that, in 7 years, we get our money back. Okay? So they want to see that kind of thinking in your financial performance. Partners, try as much as possible. I know we have had experiences where people have not come through for us, or you've had some issues. Don't stop. Don't stop trying. Hello? Sorry. Just, are you guys, is it still clear? Okay. Yeah, just saying partners, okay? Don't stop trying to build partnerships. Even if some partnerships were not successful, try and either rebuild those partnerships or try and get new partners, okay? The stronger your network of partners is, the stronger your project will be and your business will be, okay? I know that there's always, we like to keep some things to ourselves, but keeping things to yourselves and the thing is not moving anywhere is the worst position to be in than trying to reach out and get partners, risking to get partners and move forward. Always try to illustrate what government support is there for your idea, okay? People want to know that the laws are there to protect this idea. Some ideas even recently have prices, like electricity is set by the government. So they tell you this is the low price, it's 10 cents per kilowatt hour. If you can deliver your power at this price, we'll buy it. Okay? So some things I saw recently, I think it's coming out. So try and see what benefits can also be there for your project from a government perspective. For example, they may be saying, for this type of project in this particular industry, we can give you a tax break for 5 years. Okay? You don't want the investor and the lenders to discover that before you. Okay? Because then they'll say, this guy doesn't really know what he's doing. They may underestimate everything you have done before that. So it's always better for you to get ahead of it. How is this government supporting this particular idea? How are the laws supporting this? Then your legal and compliance is a key thing, Have you registered your company? Yes. Do I have a board of directors? Yes. Do you have a team? Do you have a bank account? Because it is very difficult to convince investors and banks to put money on your mobile money wallet. Okay? So try and show some basics are in place. I have a bank account, and this is the bank we're working with. Okay? Because they know by the time you've got a bank account, the bank has done some homework on you. So the bank has basically done some homework for the investors and the lenders. Okay? Your risk management, this part is becoming a key thing. Try as much as possible to have a section on risks and how those risks have been identified and how you intend to mitigate them. It's very okay to say, this one, we can't do anything, we have identified it. And it happens, but you just have to have that. Then documents, okay? So here we have a list of documents that you should always try as much as possible to have. Have your project description document, have the studies and reports that have been done, the business plan, financial model, if they're available, information memorandum, I mentioned this. It's like a 3 to 5 page summary of the project or their business or what you're doing. Your certificate of incorporation, your MEMATs, your government approvals, for example, the NEMA certificates, land, all the things you're doing at some stage are going to have to be backed up by agreements, by certificates, by some form of document. The equity documents, the loan agreements. Like I mentioned, go to these banks, get a whole list. Say, this Stanbic, what will it take? This ABSA, what will it take? Equity Bank to give me a loan. Get that whole list of the documents, the supporting documents, and get ready and start putting them in place. Supply agreements, partnership agreement, technical assistance agreements. For example, this guy said he's going to supply this machine and he'll maintain it for 3 months. It has a warranty of 1 year. Please keep those documents. They're very important because investors and banks look at that stuff. They hire companies, they hire people like, they hire the likes of PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC, audit firms, law firms to come and dig and dig into your business idea. So these are the things they will be looking for. Your permits, your licenses, any agreements that you have with the government, and commercial agreements. So with that said, I just want to, I think I can stop here for now, and maybe we can interact, we can have a conversation. Hello?
Thank you so much, Roland, Engineer Roland. Thank you. You know, I'm still scribbling things here, and then your screen went off. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Let's give Engineer Roland a big hand clap. Thank you so much for this was a masterclass. Thank you. I'm just here flipping my pages and feeling so guilty of some of the things that I'm supposed to have in place as a business person that I don't. But now that platform, how do we access it? You tell us. You tell us how to access that platform. It's so detailed, but it keeps the business very, very organized. I've liked it. Thank you, Engineer Roland. My goodness. Whoever thought business was a joke or a piece of cake. Just when you think you're almost there, and then Engineer Roland shows up and shows you that you're almost halfway. Thank you, dear entrepreneurs. We are in our session for Q&A. Please go to your chat and type in your questions. Engineer Roland is done with his presentation. I know, I just wish we had Engineer Roland. Are you with us for the Global Entrepreneurship Week?
I saw the invitation and I intend to attend, yes.
Yes. And even more beyond the Global Entrepreneurship Week, I think we will need more of this masterclass, probably on how to create, such platforms for our businesses. Thank you. I see here in the chat, let me see if we have any questions here in the chat. Well, it says, thank you, Mr. Roland, for the presentation and for using the chicken example. I see the poultry guys are in business. They are smiling all the way. This is Violet Kukundake of Nesting Farm Enterprise, a commercial layer hen farm. Okay, I'm building a business that will be sorry about that, that will be passed on from me to my children and so on. And I think the so on is the grandchildren. So question one, okay, I have been approached by potential investors. How do I bring them on board while protecting the business from being taken over by them in the future, thus safeguarding it for my children and grandchildren? I'll add for Violet there. And number two, are you in position to help me to prepare to be more investor ready so that I can reach out to other potential investors? And I think that okay, that's a conversation that you can have. I think after this, Night Virenji says thank you. Please, Engineer Roland, take note of those two questions. Let's take out some more before you come in. How to access one data and the presentation for today. There you go. Same concern that I had. Edward says, thank you, Engineer Roland, for a great presentation. I have someone who is looking for funding, and I think Roland is the best fit for that project. Kindly share your number. Okay, there you go. So you will share your number, Engineer Roland, but for now, kindly respond to those questions as the entrepreneurs also go ahead and share any other feedback or questions that you might be having. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So the first question was from Violet, right?
Yes.
Let me just try to. She has a business and she would like to prevent it from being taken over, right? Is that the question?
Yes, but also how can she prepare to become investor ready? Of course, you've been sharing. I think she just needs more light on probably much more one-on-one with you. So, but you can address that one first.
Okay. So I had shared with you, I don't know if you can see this, becoming investor ready really is more, it's very, so project finance and project development, there's no one clear-cut way of doing it. Okay, but what has emerged is people have realized that entrepreneurs and businessmen in specific fields know what they're doing. Okay, so it would be good for you to look at, for example, what would it take for, just for argument's sake, the IFC. IFC is the private arm of the World Bank. Yeah? What would it take for the private arm of the World Bank to finance my specific business? Okay, and you can Google IFC financing chicken projects in Tanzania, or I mean in Africa. There'll be a report that will come out, and you'll see what the IFC went through, what they did. Okay. The reason why I like to use the IFC as an example is that they have good funding terms, but it's very difficult to get their money because you have to do so much homework to get it. You have to put so many things in place. So for us who are at that stage where we are trying to do homework, it's a good guide. So in terms of, I just wanted to mention here to show you legal documents, okay? When you're building a business, always try and, as much as possible, to have some documents in place. For example, the shareholders agreement and the memorandum and articles of association. Okay. There was someone who was saying, how do I prevent people from taking over this business? Okay. When you enter these agreements with investors, you can actually do what they call same footing, pari passu footing. Okay. You might have 90% of the company. I may have 10% of the company, but we're going to have one vote each. It's very difficult to get that, but it's possible. Okay, there are many investors who are a bit passive. I will give you the money, you look like you know what you're doing, you run it. Right? So as much as possible, in the beginning, try and leverage your knowledge. I know Uganda. I know these people who are buying this product. They're my customers. I'm not who found them. They'll keep buying because I have a good relationship with them. Okay? So try and quantify what you have achieved so far, right? That is leverage for you in the negotiations with investors. And also, it also helps you to understand how to prepare your business and appraise it better. I don't know if I've answered that question so far, but the safest way is to always have a shareholders agreement. And I was one of those guys who basically didn't have shareholders agreements. We're working on goodwill, operating on these articles and associations of the company only, but they're not enough. Getting a shareholders agreement in place, even if it's a family business, it's very, very important and very good. And if you go to a simple lawyer or law firms, they'll give you good guidance on how this gets done. But it's worth the investment. It will cost you some little money. It's worth the investment because it will protect you. You know, like I've given you that example. Someone may own 90%, you own 10%, but everybody can have one vote because you came up with a technical idea. You're the one who understands the business better. So it's better for you to have a larger than normal say in the situation. I think that Anita, in terms of the one of the contact, that one I'll leave it to Anita. She'll manage it. Accessing the One Data platform. So this One Data platform, we built it. I would say we went through these struggles from 2003, looking at projects, and there are many projects we packaged for people here in Uganda, in the regional countries as well. Then we would go to a bank, Africa Development Bank, UDB, these development banks that have cheaper financing. And then they'll tell us, you didn't do this part, you missed this part, you need to redo this and do that. And when you tell someone who has struggled and done a lot of work already to go and redo some things, it's really can be very painful, from a technical point of view. It costs more money, it costs more time. So over the years, we began to realize these things that people are looking for, investors and banks, and even service providers. There are some contractors who will say, that person, I can't work for that person. They don't have the capacity to pay, they don't have the capacity to do this project. Okay? So you can imagine if you're in a situation where even lawyers don't want to do work for you, right? It's not a good situation to be in. So you need to be able to make yourself get ready. So we came up, we did an analysis of many projects across many sectors, and we tried to cover at least 70% of what these investors and lenders and service providers are looking for in your business and in your project. Okay. So once we had created that list of those requirements, we built this one data platform. It's online. It's actually www.onedata.info. And you can go online. There's a free account. You can actually log in to the free account, and you can start checking out the projects. Okay. So on that platform, when you're creating a project, it will bring the templates and the fields and the features that investors and banks are looking for a specific project. For example, the chicken project falls under manufacturing. Okay. And in manufacturing, more specifically, under what they call agribusiness. So the platform then would say, oh, this guy is talking about poultry. It would bring out a template for you to complete your poultry project, okay? And it will list all these, these requirements in terms of the fields, the features, the things you should be thinking about. Like I mentioned, when you meet a businessman, it's very interesting. You ask him, what is your main product? People hesitate. If you're doing 3 or 4 things, people sometimes may not know their main product. And when you make them think about their main product and they go back and do some homework, they may realize they're spending so much time on a new idea and neglecting the main product. Okay? So it's very important. This platform helps people to think about things like that. Okay, you're doing 10 things, but what's the main thing? Okay? These are the documents you need when you're going to go and talk to Stanbic, when you're going to APSA, when you're going to go to IFC. Okay? So I don't know if I've touched and covered most of those questions.
Yes, since the last one was on how to access one data. Okay, how to access one data. And the presentation. Now, usually for this presentation, entrepreneurs will share the link via your email because you registered to attend this. So if you registered to attend this, you will be getting the link that takes you straight to the YouTube session because this, as it's happening, it's being recorded. So we upload the recording. So you'll be able to get it. Yes. Thank you. Yes, Roland. Thank you so much. You've answered that ably. Dennis here has a very long question that I want to read. It says, I am Dennis from True Vine International Christian School. You talked about putting business where there are similar businesses as not being viable, since you can't sell at a price higher than colleagues. However, folks with businesses in such places like in Nkrumah are selling more than others who are scattered elsewhere. Customers are usually drawn to such places since they think prices here are lower, thus making owners of businesses in such places selling more due to an avalanche of clients from such places. Roland, do you want to throw more light on this?
No, I was talking about risk management. Okay, so he's making a good point. That is, when you go to Nkrumah now to start a new stationery business, you should be aware of the risk that there might be oversupply in that place. So I was just talking about identification and management of risks. I wasn't really criticizing it. What I was trying to say is, if you want a higher return, if you want, I'm going to invest 100 million and I want 120 million out of it. That is a 20% return. Very unlikely you're going to do it in a situation where there's oversupply. Okay? But if your game plan is me, I'm going to go and I'm going to make very small margins on high volumes. Okay? So if I identify that there's a risk here of oversupply, But the way I mitigate that risk is that I'll have a very tight price point. I'll price at the same as these people. Then what I'll do is maybe I'll make my project or product more superior than the existing ones around me. And then I'll sell in large volumes. So that point was about risk identification, mitigation, and management. Someone else may say, I don't really want to be in this place that has everybody that's doing stationery, but I know stationery is needed now in Gulu. Gulu has been made a city. It has a university now. So may I think that I can go and do this business in Gulu and I'll have a higher return. Okay? But the risk, what's the risk there? Have you done business in Gulu before? Do you know the culture, the people there? Number two, are the people in Gulu, do they have the same income as the ones in Kampala? Okay? So this was more about identify those risks and mitigate them. Thank you.
Great. I think that is very, very clear. Thank you once again, Engineer Roland, for making time, sparing time. Come and help us get investor ready. It's something that really needs one to put in some work before they hit the road looking for investors. And I think for me, what's standing out for me so much is the issue of concentrating on one product for investors. And it's true that we can get swamped with so many things. So what's the main thing is the thing for investors. So thank you. Quite a lot has been shared, but unfortunately we are running out of time. But I'm sure the entrepreneurs have gotten a feel of what it means to be investor ready, so that you tap into some of that money that can finance some of these projects, so that the businesses can grow. Engineer Roland, I'm going to invite you to give your parting shots. The issue of your contacts, yes, we will try to manage it from these ends. I hope many of us are on the Enterprise Uganda platforms. Please, if you're not, I will put here my number so that you reach out to me, so that we can see how to add you on the WhatsApp family. This is yes. Oh yeah. These numbers are not enough. Just a minute. 0 6 4 9 5. So we'll be able to link you up with Mr. Engineer Roland there. If you just send me a WhatsApp, we'll be able to add you to our groups. And Engineer Roland, please do come in, give your parting shots so that we see how we close this session this morning.
All right. Once again, thank you very much, Anita. Thank you, Enterprise Uganda. I really big proponent and supporter of what Enterprise Uganda is doing. Thank you for these sessions as well. Some parting shots. I think that number one, somehow we all have a dream. We all have an idea, okay? And sometimes it may even seem too big. I always believe that God has given you that idea, or that idea has come from some form of, it's driving you. The best thing would be to get started on it, think about it and try and document it from the very beginning, okay? Then go to the place where this idea would be executed. If your idea is to do, in my case, I had an idea to do a hydropower project, okay? And I'd had this idea for quite some time. But at some stage, after a few years, I decided, you know what, let me drive to some sites, okay? Try and go to these places where you think your idea might do well. Visit them, talk to the people around those places. Begin to formulate this idea and document it in a way that, you can build constantly on it. If it just remains in your head, it remains with you, you're not going to the field to try and take it out, it won't really come to fruition. It's when you visit these locations where you want to do this business or talk to the people that you want to partner with, that the thing begins to take, it begins to become real. Try as much as possible I always believe that many people will never get your idea. They'll never get where you're going. Okay, but there'll be a few people who will, and those few people who will have questions. They have questions that need to be satisfied. Okay, so do your best to do a lot of preparation for that idea. I always use the analogy of these guys who run 100 meters in the Olympics. They prepare for 4 years to run a race that is less than 10 seconds. But it's 4 years of preparing, and then this race is 9 point something seconds. So preparation is very key. You know, people have done ideas that are similar to yours. It may not be your specific idea, but there are people who have pulled it off. And the key word I'm using here is the word idea, not ideas, idea. So once you're able to focus and say, okay, this is what I think the level of preparation for this idea is, okay? At that stage, I'd like to encourage you, just form a specific company to do that one idea. Or if there are related ideas, maybe 5 related ideas, okay? And then let all the work you do from that point on be done in that project company, in the name of the project company. Your expenses, your time, your documentation, your bank accounts, getting tax clearances, VATs, start getting ready. You know, you never know. They say you never know when lightning may strike, when those few investors might come knocking, right? They should find you ready. You shouldn't say, now I'm going to look for a lawyer to start incorporating the company. At that stage, they'll have a say. They'll have more say in how that company should be structured. They'd rather find you more ready and say, okay, let's change it up a little bit like this. Okay? And that's how you get more foot, you know, what they call skin in the game. You're more invested, and you can't just be sidelined. It's more difficult to do it. But more importantly, when you've done all that homework, you too are also becoming picky. There are some investors that even if they have all the money in the world, you don't want to work with these guys. Okay? Because you've done so much preparation, you'll know that this guy is very good at real estate. He has all the money that he wants, but he will never get a chicken business. I'd rather deal with someone with less money that will bring on board technical, management, and financial resources to get this chicken business up and running properly. Okay? And a lot of the times, by the way, it's very good that you even don't have the money, because when you have the money, you can go into things like buying cars, renting large office space. You know, you can tie your money up in assets that will not bring your idea to fruition. But when you're lean, when you have little resources, you're able to concentrate them on getting this idea moving forward, trying to select partners that will help you move it forward, not just partners with money, partners that understand technical and management issues for this idea. Okay? Always along this journey, prepare yourself to be ready to go to a bank. Even if you don't want to do the bank now, in 10 years' time, you may need to go to the bank. So my advice would be, go to these banks now with your idea where it is and your project where it is, and ask them, what would it take for you to finance this project? They'll give you this, this form, and then there's a list of all these requirements. Use that as your game plan, your template. But one day, I may come here to this bank, and I'll have all these requirements for them to do this project. Okay? In other words, begin with the end in mind. Thank you very much, and God bless you, and I wish you all God's blessings in your business and activities.
Amen. And we pray for the